Alright, it's only been 10 years. I should upload another video, and there's clearly no better way to follow up a Mortal Kombat finisher compilation than a video about a Lorcana deck. So, real quick before we jump into the deck list, timestamps available if you really want to just see it, I want to explain why I made the deck the way I did, and to explain some of the blind spots I had. And after going through the list, I will be showing options on how to change it to deal with its shortcomings, as well as changes you can make now that Winterspell is out, both budget and non-budget options. Spoilers, I'm broke, so it's going to be pretty budget to start off regardless. Now, I have played a lot of card games. I've hit Mythic and Magic Arena before, and Legend and Hearthstone multiple times, and have pretty good fundamentals of tempo, playing to outs, as well as when and how to trade. Unfortunately for me, I find a lot of Lorcana videos really boring and didn't really know the meta. If you know any good Lorcana channels that follow the meta and are fun to watch, let me know in the comments. So, my first set champs in set 7, I built a Robin Hood deck. And well, Robin spent the entire day getting frostbite, burned, and zapped by 4 Steel Song decks. Steel Song was, at my local card shop at least, the only thing played. My fifth and final opponent being a kid with racers who also lost everything. With me not enjoying removal deck and figuring things will change with the upcoming rotation, I decided to wait. Alright, it's set 9, let's go. Oh, it's all old cards and sold out. So if I win, it's just old packs that rotate in less than a year. You know what, let's wait a little longer. So here we are, set 10, and I want to try the Sapphire Steel Structure deck. Mostly for the art, to be honest, but it does pretty decent in my locals, and finishing playsets of every card costs less than an average McDonald's burger. But, most importantly, I pulled a Pluto Steel Champion, put it in the deck, and the feeling of attacking into something with Nick and Pluto out almost gives me enough dopamine to forget Steel Song exists. So, I get a playset of Pluto and a bunch of other cards that look good in the deck, and I'm ready for my second set champs. Only 2 issues. First, I'm dumb, and secondly, I still don't know the meta. I'm playing blind in whatever is about to happen. However, there was one glimpse I had into what might get played at set champs. You see, another guy at our locals with a set 9 championship mat played dogs. I fought him a few times before I fully upgraded my deck, and couldn't pull off a win, but he stopped coming, so I never tried my upgraded version. But if dogs are good enough to win the set champs, and in my first set champ experience I only fought one deck all day, if that pattern keeps up, and if I can surgically build my deck to never lose to dogs, we might win this whole thing. Now with that preamble out of the way, and you know what I was focused on when I built my deck, let's finally get into the full deck list that I ran. Alright, here's the deck I got top 8 in during our set 10 store champs. Remember, our goal is to beat dogs, as it was the deck I was certain I'd face going in. So much that before even getting into the cards, I want to point out some of the ratios of card types. This deck is extremely character heavy, with 51 in total, so Daisy Donald's date, while usually being an extremely strong 1-drop, and to be fair, even against this deck it still is. She does have a real downside of almost always letting us draw a card when our opponent uses it, and with only 5 songs and 4 items, disruption cards like Mowgli and Ursula often whiff. We can pretty safely expect to always draw a character to keep up pressure and synergize with our non-characters, as the few non-character cards we do run are best when we consistently have characters on the board or in hand. Also keep in mind, out of 51 characters, 42 are detectives, as I talk about cards, if you're curious how likely we are to have detectives to activate certain cards. Finally, we have 52 Inkables and some T-Pos, so bricking on Inkables should be pretty much impossible. Onto the 1-drops, in half our non-character cards, we have 4 copies of the Robot Queen, which is a great card to start off with, as we can pop it on the following turn with the second 1-drop, if we need early removal, and if we don't, a certain 3-drop can make it ramp. Then our 1-drop characters are 4 Nick Wilde, Sly Fox Sleuth, and 2 Basil Practice Detectives. Nick is mostly there to be a shift target, as well as he can make Pluto pop items cheaply in the late game, while Basil can be used to buff others using support, as we want to trade a lot with this deck. And Basil helps us punch up, even using non-detectives. But his 1 health is a downside, and as well, we'll see later, still characters are generally nice to have a lot of. Onto our 2 drops. 3 Daisy Duck Ghostfinder, basically Basil again, but a bit less susceptible to removal, as well as being a shift target. And I mentioned Basil buffing a non-detective, and well, him and Daisy are possibly going to want to buff the next card, Tipo Growing Sun. One of our best cards is a 4-cost Judy, and using Tipo to speed up to 4 total ink a turn early to get that Judy out fast is one of the best plays this deck can make. Especially as that Judy can really fill our hand up to counter the downside of losing a card in hand to ramp for Tipo. So you might be asking, why just 2 copies? Well, let's go back to the beginning of the video. Spoilers, I'm broke, so it's gonna be pretty budget to start off regardless. I only had 2 copies, you should probably run 4. He's also great bait to quest with each turn. If he gets hit, have your other detectives come in and fight the character that banished him. Finally, our last 2 drops are 4 Inspector Tezukas. We have a handful of really important characters we want to protect later, so no reason not to use the Bodyguard Detective as a shield that we have a decent chance of finding with the 4-cost Judy I've been hyping up. On to the 3 drops, and let's start with the not as good Judy. Judy Hops on the Case, which we run 2 of. We have 3 cards that are particularly strong, the 4-cost Judy I've been mentioning, and 2 others that cost 5. So while not as good as Tipo's ramp, this Judy is a shift target that can ramp up using the Robot Queen, as mentioned previously, if we don't need it, with the upside of being able to beat Emerald Chromacon on curve. Similarly, we are running 3 Mickey Mouse Detectives to ramp to 5 early, although I would suggest swapping 2 for Tipos if you have them. Rounding out our 3-cost characters, we have 3 Basil, Tenacious Mouse, and 4 Francine Eyeing the Evidence. Both are meant to be steel detectives that Nick and Pluto love having around. Using Resist to last a while on the battlefield, with the benefit of being some of our better characters to quest with each turn, for the matchups where you'll be out-controlled and need to be the aggressive deck in the matchup. Finally, with our high character focus and a lot being cost 3 or above, our 4 Strength of a Raging Fires are almost always a free removal spell that will banish just about anything unless it has Ward. Now on to our 4 drops. Finally, let's talk about Judy Hops Uncovering Clues, which we run 4 of. She's one of our deck's 3 big cards. When we play her, and each time we quest with her, we get to look at the top 3 cards and reveal a detective to put in our hand. Since we run 42 detectives, this means on average 2 of every 3 cards are a detective, so she will almost always get played and immediately get a new card to put in your hand. And it happens every quest as well, so we basically always get a free card draw every turn she sticks around. And we get choices, since we usually have 2 detectives to choose from statistically. We could try to get low impact cards for ink, Tezuka to protect her, a second Judy to really start getting some serious card advantage, or maybe we just go for our second 4-drop, Donald Duck Ghost Hunter, or Dark Iron Donald as I like to call him. We run 4 copies and can surprise opponents by increasing our detective's attack out of nowhere, making an opponent's challenge or quest that looks safe suddenly be much less so. Plus he's an aggressively statted steel detective, which it's finally time to explain why these are so good. On to our other 2 really powerful cards, both 5 mana. First, Nick Wilde, Persistent Investigator, a 4 of. We can cheat him out with our various ramp cards, and even just shifting him onto the 1-cost Nick card, and allows us to draw every time we banish a character with a detective, and not other detectives either, so he can draw a card if he does the banishing. Similar to our 4-cost Judy, it allows detectives to just refill on cards so easily and draw into more removal, and more characters to push for game. Against dogs, you can banish them, draw cards, try to keep 3 or above cost characters ready, so if you draw into a Strength of a Raging Fire, you can snipe the unexerted dogs and completely flip the tables on an aggressive deck. You can even have out 2 or more Nicks and have them stack, drawing 2 or more cards every time you banish a character, and giving your local Yu-Gi-Oh players an aneurysm. Now, you might be thinking, is clearing the board that good? If they're ahead, can you really catch up? Aren't you just delaying the inevitable? I'm glad you asked, person I made up. The third really powerful card I want to bring up is Pluto Steel Champion. Also, the second non-detective character after Tipo, and we're running a full 4 of him. First off, this isn't even why we're playing Pluto, but Pluto has the nice upside of we just destroy items willy-nilly for basically free. So if items are ever a problem, they won't be for us. But the real reason we play him is he makes our other steel characters gain 2 lore whenever we banish in a challenge. So our control plan actually pushes us towards winning. In fact, since most of our characters only quest for 1 lore, banishing with Pluto is our best game plan. Especially with Nyx and Pluto's out, since Pluto can stack getting us 4 or more lore off challenge, and even allowing Pluto to challenge to gain 2 lore if 2 Plutos are out, as both of them see each other as other steel characters. So here we get a full picture of our game plan. Play cheap cards to ramp, remove characters, or be ready to support once all the pieces are in play. Get lots of value off Nick Wilde and Judy Hopps, with Pluto in there to turn our controlling slow deck into a fast burn deck. Now our last 5 drop is not as flashy, and it's our final non-detective. It's Daisy Duck Sapphire Champion, which we have 3 of. With the exception of our 6-cost Judy, generally our Sapphire characters want to quest and our Steel characters want to challenge, and this Daisy helps with that, making our Sapphire characters harder to defeat, with a slight benefit of letting us try to dig for a good card to draw off Nick or just the natural draw step. On to the 6 drops. We have Judy Hopps Lead Detective, which I ran 3 of, so our whole board can challenge evasive characters and take less damage from challenging, period. She can also be shifted onto the 3-cost Judy, and I guess the 4-cost one as well if you're really desperate. Our final character is the 6-cost Daisy Duck Paranormal Investigator, which I ran 2 of, and to be honest, I mostly played her out of obligation. She's the legendary detective. She must be good in the deck, right? Maybe in a real game I'll see her be useful and see why she's the legendary. But no, it's just better to play Judy, Nick, or Pluto. Even the element of surprise where you shift her onto the 2-cost version and now support for 4 power instead of 2 is done better by the 4-cost Donald, where there is no telegraphing of the buff at all. She's one of the more expensive cards and one of the easiest to cut. Finally, we have a single copy of Beyond the Horizon, since a free draw 3, even with all the card draw we can get, is hard to say no to. And with a single copy, we never have to discard the card to itself, and can be used to disrupt an opponent with a very full hand. Now, let's go over the results my deck got. The first game, I fought a different detective deck and won 2-0. The second game was against dogs, and as planned, this deck did not lose to dogs, getting 2-0. Even without Pluto, I had to deal with a Chromicon on turn 3 and just outswarm the opponent with my Nyx for backup if I needed to switch to control. Now, my third game was interesting. I went up against an Amber Sapphire Princess deck, getting lots of value out of Cinderella. Mostly it got ramp, card draw, and for me, the big bad was Hades' Infernal Schemer, hitting my good value cards like Nick or Pluto, but in the end, I won the round, but got my first loss of the day at 2-1. Now, I didn't know this going in, but you can ask for an intentional draw, so you and your opponent can both keep a high standing. My opponent asked for it, and the only downside I could really see was I did want to learn what people were playing and what decks were good. But with the next set coming out in a few weeks, it wouldn't really matter, so I decided to take his offer, but asked if we could play a no-stakes game to pass the time until next round. In hindsight, taking the draw was the best play I made of the entire tournament. He was on Ruby Amethyst, and like most Ruby decks, you forget it's there, because the other color is way better. However, this brings in the other cards that beat my deck this tournament besides Hades. Like our first card, Hades looking for a deal. Similar to our previous Hades, he does allow our opponent to get rid of whatever my best card is. Now, unlike the other Hades, I can say no for a price, but the card draw, at least in my experience, was pretty brutal. We really seem to have an issue with our value pieces getting removed when we're holding them back for the right time. Which brings us to Elsa, the fifth spirit, which can immediately attack, exert things we don't want exerted, and has evasive to boot, so even punishing the Elsa on the crackback is difficult. Our entire deck has an evasive weakness, so sometimes you just have a non-game where your opponent can freely quest and trade on their terms, without us being able to do much except hope we get our 6-cost Judy, especially when Dumbo, ninth wonder of the world, is on the field, allowing them to also just draw a ton. Finally, this matchup, specifically the Ruby cards, were there to take damage so that Cheshire Cat, Inexplicable, has a higher chance of popping off, being both healing and repeatable damage to remove or whittle down my characters. This is where things started to go south. We got a draw, of course, at the start of the game, and just played for fun, but I went 0-2 in the for fun game. Now, while researching for this video, this card never came up, but I should mention another meta card I could have had to deal with, which is Demona, Scourge of the Wyvern clan. She can exert everything we have if you're holding back Nick or Pluto. Although she has the up and downside of each player draws 3 cards when you play her as well. With our deck being pretty swarmy, it's very possible our opponents had her, but didn't want us to draw, as I usually only had 1 card in hand. Okay, finally, after talking about all the cards we need to plan for next time, it's time for round 5. We've steadily been doing worse since round 3, where we lost our first game, and round 4, where I got crushed. So, how bad did I do round 5? Well, I got offered another draw, and that was, in hindsight, my opponent's best play of the night, because he was on dogs, so we have still not lost to a single dog, baby. If I wanted to, this is where we can start doing YouTube thumbnail clickbait. 100% win rate against dogs. I beat dogs without playing a single card. One simple trick to infuriate dog owners, and so on and so on. We did not do a for fun game for me to gloat about, though, sadly. So finally, after that round, I was in the top 8. I go up against an Amethyst Sapphire deck, and the first game, I kinda just crush it, playing wide and going aggro, and end up winning the first game really fast. Kinda surprised this deck got to top 8 at first, but the tables did turn the second game. I saw more power cards, Purple Hades, Blue Hades, Elsa, all getting played and messing with my plan. Eventually the removal was too much and I lost game 2. Finally, game 3, and this time he gets out Dumbo, Elsa, and a bunch of other evasive characters, and I can't do much but dig for a Judy I never found, and lost game 3. So I must have just gotten super bad draws game 1, and well, that's it for me. It's single elimination in top 8, but I'm curious how the finals will go. So I look through bulk and wander by every so often to see how the games are going. And in the final match, the Amber Sapphire deck I beat in round 3 wins against the Amethyst Sapphire deck that took me out in round 6. So while I was kinda sad to lose in top 8 immediately, at least I had fun and fought a variety of decks, unlike some sets. And well, I did beat the champion in Swiss and lost to second place, so I feel pretty good about the deck in general, especially once we deal with its glaring issues. So let's get into how we can change it. Now, the main thing I want to do with this deck is balance our ability to beat dogs, evasive decks, and slower Amber decks now that the card Raging Storm has been printed. We are so character focused that if Raging Storm goes off, we probably have no chance of coming back. Also, I'm using the term dog somewhat loosely to mean basically any aggressive deck. With the existence of Grandmother Willow, aggro can fill the board and gain a ton of lore quickly in various color combos. But probably the classic Amber Emerald, as they can rip out some of our ways to deal with them from our hand, assuming we have any in hand, which we can mitigate to a degree. Or we can just get scammed by 4 of this fish turn 1. Yay. As mentioned previously, if we have a high enough character ratio, Daisy Duck Donald's Date, which is usually run in these type of decks, does have the downside of often drawing us a card each turn, and they can't even ink it instead, so they can really end up Daisy Ducking themselves. So, in short, we have to run enough bricks that let us fight against evasive, while having anti-aggro for the various Amber decks, and the ability to become the aggressive deck against Raging Storm, while still running a lot of detectives for Judy and Nick to be consistently good. Here's the old deck. Most of the cards are playable still, but both of the Basils are kind of awful. They don't do a lot and just get eaten by the cat, which I guess is on theme for a mouse. And yep, Daisy Duck Paranormal Investigator was indeed super underwhelming. Now, there are 6 pre-winterspell cards I didn't have or just didn't believe in enough I'll talk about first, since many winterspell editions are mostly a package based around one guy. First, let's get our vegetables out of the way. Not only should I have run 4 copies of Judy Hopps' Lead Detective or the Evasive Army, I should have also run 4 of the only detective I'm talking about in this pre-winterspell section, Minnie Mouse Ghost Hunter. Or at least 2 or 3 of her, so that we have more ways to fight evasive, with the upside of it being grabbable off Judy searching for clues, and used to help fight evasive, or just as ink for our various 5 drops. Plus, she's steel, so I get to lure when she punches a tree to death while a dog watches, which is nice. We also have, but I'm much faster, to be an even cheaper alert giver. Even 0 if I exert literally anything, with the upside of the attack boost making it less dead than Minnie Mouse is in the non-evasive matchups. Finally, we have the Ink Runner if we want a more permanent use of alert, with the consolation prize of drawing a card. It feels the weakest against non-evasive, but our Winterspell main character will be able to help with that very, very, very slightly. We also have Sail the Azurite Sea, a worse Tipo in my opinion, but Tipo is pretty good, and a number of the new good cards are 5+ ink, so being able to ramp out is quite nice. And you can also mix and match, as Tipo gives you a body to quest with, but Tipo ramps you at the cost of 2 cards in hand, while Sail only takes 1. Tipo is also a terrible top deck, while Sea is merely a bad top deck. The last 2 pre-winterspell cards are unfortunately pretty expensive money-wise draw options you could use instead of Beyond the Horizons if you want, or if you want draw not as reliant on your cards not getting removed. Those are Doc Bold Knight and Goliath Clan Leader. I don't think you need them, as draw wasn't a huge issue for me, but they are options if you have them already. They are both steel to work with Pluto, but let's be honest, Doc is not going to be doing much damage. Goliath certainly can, though. Now, on to Winterspell. Let's talk about him. The big new detective from the set. The easiest card to recommend. Say it with me now. McHorn! No, I am not trolling. He comes out after Judy and can protect her, Nick, and Pluto. One of the cards that was most annoying for my opponents is Tezuka, just making it that much harder to get in and stop my value, and McHorn is way bigger and more aggressive. So it's not good to challenge him with Elsa, Iago, Dumbo, Cheshire Cat, and even against aggro, he's a big steel detective that can trigger Pluto and Nick while protecting them. He's only getting one shot by Demona or the play effects of Hades, but we got some ways to mitigate that later on. Now, on to who you probably expected me to talk about the most, Darkwing Duck. The problem though is Darkwing Duck is kind of his own game plan of spamming items to do various effects, taking out villains, and making characters villains so those effects can be used in all games and not just a few, with other characters in the show being non-detective support cards. Darkwing Duck though just happens to be a detective, and I don't think we can run a lot of the Darkwing strategy without diluting our high character and detective card counts. However, there are a few notable ones we can. Let's start with the big payoff and the main reason to use parts of the Darkwing package in this deck. Darkwing Duck, Cool Under Pressure. 7 cost, Shift 5, potentially playable on turn 4 with ramp. While he's on the board, whenever an item is banished on our turn, keep note of that, as we might be able to destroy our items on an opponent's turn. We can pay 1, deal 2 damage to something. So now, we can grab the Robot Queen, beat Cheshire Cat over the head with it, and Darkwing Duck can come over and do it a second time. Or as mentioned before, we got a useless Ink Runner on the field against aggro. With the help of Pluto, Darkwing Duck will happily get drunk and crash it into the nearest tree. You can also attack ready villains, which does at least give us a counterattack against Hades or Demona before they can start singing. On top of that, we have the added benefit of being a steel detective for our good cards, and 7 costs to solo sing Beyond the Horizon. So while it's a much better detective boss monster than Daisy was, I unfortunately can't suggest much else related to him. Of course, we want to shift targets. Steel detectives are always good, and the Sapphire one can be both annoying to remove with Ward, and can punch up trading into various 3-drops in a pinch if needed. There is lesser Ink Runner in the form of Infra Pink Ultra Specs. Half the cost, but you have to discard after the draw, and you can't reuse it. But it is easier to destroy on your turn, not requiring Pluto, so you can ask the age-old question, who would win in a fight between a tree and binoculars being thrown at Lock 7? Now there's one last Darkwing Duck card I can sort of suggest, the Thunderquack. You can probably tell I'm conflicted, because I see 2 possibilities. I play it, gain some lore here and there, but the tempo loss is too severe, or it just gets destroyed by a Pluto and does nothing. Or I have this, a few Darkwings, and my opponent never gets to play, and I auto-win. Especially if you really want to meme and use Darkwing Tower. I'm going to have to try and experiment with it a bit. Use some caution if you want it. If nothing else, at least it's another thing Darkwing Duck can crash into a tree. For the last new detective I want to talk about, we also got a 2-cost steel detective Judy to shift onto. That's 1 ink like 10% of the time. Nothing special, although now we can run a 2 or less cost shift target for Darkwing, Nick, and Judy, which brings us to our non-detectives to try from the set that are not related to Darkwing Duck. I always knew blue players were criminals, as shown with Duke Weaselton Sullery Crook, who to a degree allows you to play on your opponent's turn. Not only when he's banished can we put a new character in his place, we can activate abilities. For example, if we didn't spend all our ink, we can spend 1 for the Robot Queen as we play the character to deal 2 damage to a target. Very helpful to snipe a Cheshire Cat play. We can also banish items with Pluto and a steel character, play Tezuka as a bodyguard, play the 2-cost Darkwing Duck if we expect our opponent wants to snipe the character we play, as well as get our shift targets ready for the next turn, or just recover from a Raging Storm board clear. Plus he is steel, and he can get us lore off Pluto, plus a free character if he also gets banished in the challenge. The other non-detective I really love is John Smith Undaunted Protector. Some people want to run Scrooge McDuck Reformed Ebenezer to protect their board in Sapphire, but we get no value from his effect other than a single turn of protection, unless we also run Pete, Ghost of Christmas Future, who, to be fair, is a good card. Similar to the 4-cost Judy if you want to try that, but I'm more into the detective focus. So, why John? First off, he can protect multiple turns as long as he's alive, unlike Scrooge, while also allowing us to protect against board-based decks. With Bodyguard, this bodyguard can also make an opponent's Demona or Elsa much less effective. We can also use our various other bodyguards as layered protection, keeping John Smith unexerted so he'd have to be removed with removal effects, and our other bodyguards would still need to be taken out with challenges. Also, my win con is Pluto, so more steel characters to challenge with the better. The main downsides are his stats are a little low for the cost, but we ramp. We also can't ink him, although if he eats a Let It Go, he's going to become our ink anyway. Speaking of, with McHorn, John, Nick, Pluto, Judy, and Darkwing Duck, the now reprinted Let It Go is a great addition to our removal options. Now, at the end of this, I will show a budget and non-budget list for new detective decks, but the reason I'm going so in depth is that I find this deck and meta fun and want to give advice on what you can put in the deck based on cards you have or want to try, so you can make it your own and experiment. The last two cards I want to suggest are to help fill up weaknesses your version of the deck could have. First, Angel Experiment 624. Hopefully you don't need this since it's so expensive, but it can help you if your deck is lacking the ability to deal with the aggro of dogs and other wide amber decks. With the 2 damage ping for no ink cost to help you stabilize, then go in for value later. Finally, if you want to be able to be more aggressive yourself, Lilo Bundled Up is an early card that quests for 2 and is hard to remove. If she is double challenged, that's 2 characters you can challenge to get value with on your turn. There is the cat in the room though, as Lilo is pretty awful against Cheshire Cat, and with her being uninkable, she is a card you can end up getting Daisy Ducked by in an Amethyst matchup. So, as promised, on to the deck list. I don't want to share exactly what I'll be playing, since to be honest, it'll depend on what I'm able to get a hold of before Scent Champs, and I don't want it totally out in the open in case I play against anyone watching, but I built 2 decks. One I suggest if you want something super budget that can compete, and one with no budget at all. Basically, if I had 4 copies of every card, this is what I'd likely do. The deck I will eventually run will be somewhere in the middle, and hopefully with my earlier card discussions, you can find a middle ground too if you want something cheaper than the high-end deck, but with more spice than the budget deck. Speaking of the budget deck, I think this is pretty good as it's basically what I ran last set, Champs, with some added cards to fight against evasive, and some protection for our best cards. The most expensive cards money-wise are the playsets of Tipo and Strength of a Raging Fire, as this deck focuses on being more swarmy than most decks. Lots of cheap characters so we can spam for high quest counts and strong Raging Fires. Tipo is our ramp of choice for the early 4-cost Judy Hops, and we're usually going to be playing aggressively but can switch to value with Nick and Pluto when fighting a more aggressive deck than us. We also have the ability to surprise with damage buffs with both our Dark Iron Donald and our But I'm Much Fasters. Our new cards are mainly the protective cards McHorn and John Smith, and we have a Duke Weaselton, with a variety of 2-drops including the Ward Darkwing Duck, Bodyguard Tezuka, and Support Daisy to quickly fight back if need be. Or we can just play the shift targets for Nick and Judy for the following turn. Duke is also good insurance against Raging Storm so we don't fall too far behind. As we don't run most Darkwing cards, we are focusing on songs to keep our momentum going when it comes to non-character cards. Overall, it's mostly low rarity 4-ofs. A little boring and non-flashy, but I think especially with how my first run with detectives went, and now that we can fight evasive better, I believe with practice you can go far with this deck. Now, onto the other end of the spectrum, we have my non-budget deck. That's main prize comes from the Angels and Goliaths. Here we are running 6 ramp cards to try getting 4 ink quicker for both Judy Hops or Angel, who is one of our big anti-aggro cards. Really, we don't focus as much on lower cost cards in general and are trying to play 4 or more cost cards earlier and get a ton of value out of them. We use Goliath as a means to draw cards and make our opponents discard to fight against control, while keeping our McHorn and John Smith combo in the deck. Goliath also helps us recover from the discards of Angel when against aggressive decks. We use the Ink Runner to help fight against evasive, and with a mix of the Robot Queen, Darkwing Duck throwing items willy-nilly, and Angel, we can whittle characters down pretty consistently. If they have Ward, we can protect with our bodyguards and quest out or challenge with Pluto on the board. I do see a weakness against Raging Storm, but you can still try to go wide with Judy Hops adding the cheap detectives over and over again, and Goliath's forced discard can make life difficult for your opponent. The counts for Raging Fire and Let It Go are kind of arbitrary. You can feel free to change them. I just didn't want to feed too much ramp into a Raging Storm player, but we admittedly don't have many characters that can sing Strength but not Let It Go. We also finally cut Donald as he just isn't doing enough in this build. However, we lose the mental damage we deal to our opponent by making him sing.
Let it go! Let it go! I've told you back
Overall, I think it still fits the detective playstyle while allowing you to get extra value in a lot of ways to put it over the top in some matches. I have a last minute update to the video. If you're in Utah, the Lore Lowdown has made bounties for set champs, and conveniently, any of them could be put in a Sapphire Steel detective deck, and the biggest reward could be done with any theme deck including detectives. And they used mine as an example, so shout out to them. I'll have a link in the description to the video if you want the details. They start at around the 35-minute mark. And with that, thanks everyone for watching and enjoy the decks. I do want to make more videos of Magic the Gathering and Lorcana in the future. Just don't get too used to my family-friendly demeanor. I wanted this to be PG for a Discord server I'm sharing this in. For example, I have many words to say when it comes to playing against Steelsong, and most of those words are